Unit 4, Part 1. Let's carry on. So the medical schemes and the risk management, we're going to look at the learning outcomes. So in short, I just put it there and read for you. Learning outcomes. So in this unit, you have to understand the entry-level controls available to medical schemes to manage opportunistic behavior by members. You have to be able to explain the waiting periods and how they are applied. You have to define a late joiner penalty and explain how this is calculated. We're going to look into that and I'm going to show that to you. Demonstrate an understanding of the managed care techniques available to medical schemes to manage healthcare services. And we're going to look lastly at demonstrate knowledge of the conditions and standard for managed healthcare. So the introduction to Unit 4. Groups of employees may be moved between open schemes for a variety of reasons. You still know what is an open scheme and a closed scheme? Hit me here. Yes, well done. Open scheme is open to everybody. Closed scheme is only available for the people who work in that for that company or group of companies. Like BankMed is only for people working for the banks. It's not open to the public or anybody else. All right. Then you look at the second bullet. The employer and employees may, for example, be unhappy with the service levels or benefits of a scheme. 3. The entrenched principles in the Medical Schemes Act of Open Enrollment, Community Rating and Minimum Benefits mean that medical schemes have had to become managers of risk rather than avoiders of risk. And then the last one, the Act provides various tools for medical schemes to control risk. These can be broadly categorized as follows. Entry-level controls designed to manage the opportunistic or anti-selective behavior of applicants who wait until they are sick and need medical treatment before they choose to join a medical scheme, and concurrent controls or tools designed to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of the delivery of healthcare to members, specifically the PMBs, to limit the financial risk to the scheme. So, what happened in the past, as we said in Unit 1, we need the young people who's healthy and not sick. We need their premiums to support the medical scheme for paying out all the older people because they cannot discriminate against the older sick people. They have to take them on. But now what happened in the past is the young people said, but we are young, we are healthy, we're not going to join a medical scheme. And I was the same. I said, no, why must I join a scheme? I'm fit, I'm healthy, I'm young. So now they said, okay, but now the problem is those youngsters, they wait until they become older, until they become sick. Oh, now suddenly they want to join. You see, so instead of the medical scheme sitting with, how can I put it nicely, a problem issue with the older sick people, they're wanting the younger healthy people, but now they get middle-aged sick people again. So they sit with the old sicker people and the middle people getting sick, and there's no good business, as I can say it that way. Um, Young healthy people. So that is why they said no. We're gonna make a plan. So the Act obliges medical schemes to admit all members and their dependents, or in the case of restricted schemes, all those within that particular group, that all those in the bank can belong to the BankMed. It also obliges schemes to charge all members of a particular option the same contribution rates. This is in line with the principles of open enrollment and community rating, and together with the minimum benefits that schemes must provide, is aimed at preventing practices that would result in sick members being dumped on an already overburdened public healthcare sector. So that is why the medical schemes must take the old people. Otherwise, those old sick people would be dumped on the government um, to take care of them and look after them, which would have cost the government extra money. However, this leaves schemes very vulnerable to anti-selection, where members wait until they need medical cover before joining a medical scheme. Schemes are therefore entitled to impose two measures: waiting periods and late joiner penalties to mitigate such anti-selection. So the principles, so the right of admission, the principle of open enrollment in medical schemes was discussed in earlier regarding section 29 subsection 2, which provides that medical schemes cannot cancel or suspend a member's membership or that of any of their dependents except on the grounds of failure to pay within the time allowed in the medical scheme's rules, the membership fees required in such rules, failure to repay any debt due to the medical scheme, submission of a fraudulent claims, committing any fraudulent act, or the non-disclosure of material information. Potential medical scheme members need to be made aware of the serious consequences of failing to declare material information about their own medical history or that of their dependents on medical scheme application forms. A growing number of members have had their membership of a scheme terminated owing to failure to disclose material information. In a recent appeal case before the Cape High Court, Profmed Medical Scheme's rights to terminate the membership of a woman who failed to declare. She didn't declare, she kept it a secret. She failed to declare that she had a gastroscopy and a colonoscopy for a suspected gastric ulcer, which turned out to be gastritis, within 12 months of her application to join Profmed. She went for that gastroscopy and colonoscopy for gastritis. She knew it, but she failed to declare it. She lied on her application form. And when she was caught out, the court said she was wrong. She was supposed to declare it, and Profmed was right to terminate the membership. People say, yes, it can also happen to you. Rather declare and know from the beginning, yes, they accept me, they will pay all, than to keep quiet, paying all those premiums every time. And because you lied, you didn't declare, they're not going to pay at the end of the day, so you wasted all that money. All right. I declare because I want to know if I sign anything there, I know I've declared everything from my side. They loaded me or they accepted me or whatever, they will pay. The same with life insurance. There's a lot of life insurance companies that also didn't pay 5 million, 6 million, 8 million, 10 million life cover because the applicants lied. They didn't declare it on their policies that they had cancer issues 12 months before joining, or that they had kidney failures 12 months before they joined, or they had heart problems, heart attacks, and issues before they joined. And it came out when the spouses wanted to claim. I know personal friends of mine, the husband didn't declare to one of the big FSPs in South Africa that he had heart issues, serious heart issues. He hid the fact because when he declared it to the other life insurance companies, they didn't want to insure him for that. So on this company, he lied. He didn't say anything about it, and he took and they accepted him because they didn't know, and he paid the premiums for many years. But when he got a heart attack and he died, the FSP did the investigations and they found out, hang on, This guy was seeing the doctors, the specialists about his heart. He knew about these conditions. There was the hard evidence. His wife was sitting at home, oh, please, please, they must pay, I think 5 million rand they had to pay out. And they said, tell the story. She was furious because she's got nothing. But he lied on the application form. They said they would have accepted him with loadings. And if he was willing to pay the loadings, no problem. You see, so you can open many problems for yourself if you don't declare. Continuation of membership. Once you are admitted to a scheme, you have the right to remain a member of that scheme, so long as you pay your contributions. The CMS suggests in its model rules that if you have not paid within 30 days of your contribution being due, the scheme can serve notice on you, giving you further 21 days to settle. When after, if you have still not paid, your membership can be suspended or terminated. If you settled in full, your membership should continue without a break in continuity. You do not commit fraud if you submit fraudulent claims or commit on other fraud. Your membership can be suspended or terminated. A typical scheme can also suspend or terminate your membership if you failed to disclose information when you apply for your membership. So you see, all you must not commit fraud. It can just open a can of more problems. The Act stipulates that members who retire from employment or whose employment is terminated due to age, health, or disability must be allowed to continue to be members of the scheme of which they have been a member. Section 29, subsection 1S provides that the rules of a medical scheme must allow for the continuation, subject to such conditions as may be prescribed, of the membership of a member who retires from service or whose employer or whose whole employment is terminated by his or her employer on account of age, ill health, or other disability and his dependents. Okay. An amendment to the regulations under the Act that took effect from 1 January 2003 removed conditions on continuation of membership. Previously restricted membership schemes could require members to have had up to a maximum of 5 years of membership to qualify for continued membership. Section 29, subsection 1S, is aimed at protecting members of restricted schemes and is irrelevant in the case of members of open medical schemes. Because the fact that a member leaves their employment will not affect their rights to belong to that open scheme. So it just means that the member is no longer part of an employer group and they will continue to be a private or individual member. The fact that the employee in a restricted membership scheme may continue membership of the scheme does not, however, mean the employer is compelled to continue subsidizing the contributions. So if you worked for BankMed for many years and now you're on pension, you retire, the medical scheme BankMed will allow you to stay on as a BankMed member, but it doesn't mean that the bank will subsidize your contribution. You have to pay it out of your own name. But this will depend on the employee's condition of employment. The Act does not mention employees who are entrenched, they don't talk about that, but a number of restricted membership schemes have made provision for such members to retain their membership under certain conditions. The Act also provides for the dependents of a deceased member to continue to be members of the scheme. I know, like the police, they are at Polmed. Uh, if the police uh, member dies, passes on, the dependents can still carry on and still be members of the scheme. In terms of Section 29, subsection 1T, the rules of a scheme must provide for continued membership of a member's dependents, subject to such conditions as may be prescribed after the death of that member, until such dependent becomes a member of or is admitted as a dependent of a member of another medical scheme. They might then take the spouse and say, all right, spouse, we cannot just have dependents. Since your husband or your wife passed away, we make you now the principal member and the children stays on as dependents. The use of the term continued membership is somewhat misleading in this context, as dependents have not been members. They are dependents who now become entitled to membership. There are two types of entry-level controls available to medical schemes to mitigate the opportunistic or anti-selective behavior of members who wait until they are sick and need medical treatment before they choose to join a medical scheme. Now, this is the entry-level controls available. How are we going to control people that are seen as entry-level new joiners? There are two ways to do this: by number one, waiting periods, and number two, late joiner penalties. So when you look at waiting periods, medical schemes are currently allowed to impose certain limited waiting periods on members who join medical schemes without having been a member previously or after a certain break in membership. In June 2018, the Department of Health released a draft medical schemes amendment bill, which proposes to repeal the entire section of the Act that currently provides for waiting periods and replacing it with a new section. In announcing the amendments, Health Minister Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi explained that amendments were intended to bring medical schemes in line with the NHI, and there will be no waiting periods and late joiner penalties under NHI. But that was Mr. Aaron Motsoaledi is not the health minister. It was just by that time when he was still the health minister. He explained this. However, the bill only proposes amending the waiting periods. Currently, Section 29A of the Act provides for the two waiting periods that the scheme can impose, and they are, as we said before, a general waiting period of up to 3 months. Sorry, we didn't say it before. There's a general waiting period. So you talk about the general waiting period. So a general waiting period is up to 3 months, and a condition specific waiting period is 12 months. So a general waiting period, this one, the first one, is defined in Section 1 of the Act to mean a period in which a beneficiary is not entitled to claim any benefits. So your general for 3 months, you say you can get no doctor's appointments, no dentist, no glasses, spectacles, um, no operations, etc. But it is excluding emergency. Emergency, excluding emergency. So in other words, if you're in a car accident and you need to be operated, they will pay if it's an emergency. But if you just want to do an operation because you want to make your lips bigger or your ears shorter or your nose smaller, no, then you have to wait. All right. Condition. Then we're going to look at condition-specific waiting periods. A condition-specific waiting period, as defined in Section 1 of the Act, means a period during which a beneficiary is not entitled to claim benefits in respect of a condition for which medical advice, diagnosis, care, or treatment was recommended or received within the 12-month period ending on the date on which an application for membership was made. So, for example, let's say you've got high blood pressure, hypertension, high blood pressure, um, also referred to as hypertension. And you tell your new medical scheme, this is my condition. They said, not a problem. We will accept you, but we were going to exclude this for 12 months. So if you have to go to hospital or get the operation or this or that because of high blood pressure or hypertension, for the next 12 months, we will not pay it. Anything else, not a problem. We will pay. So it's just that condition, that specific condition. Actually, they could have just called it specific condition waiting period. Now they swapped it around condition specific. For that specific condition, they exclude for 12 months, but not the rest. Okay. That's the difference between the two. Then we look at late joiner penalties. A late joiner penalty refers to a penalty by way of additional contributions imposed on person joining a scheme for the first time only, but late in their life. It is intended to encourage earlier and continuous membership of a medical scheme. They want people to join earlier while they're still young and healthy. Regulation 13 subsection 1 provides that a medical scheme may apply premium penalties to an applicant or dependent of a late joiner, and such penalties must be applied only to the portion of the contribution related to the member or any adult dependent who qualifies for late joiner penalties. When can waiting periods not be applied? New waiting periods cannot be applied by a medical scheme in the following instances. However, unexpired waiting periods previously imposed can be carried forward. So don't think if you join the scheme now, you pay late joiner penalties, and then you stay on the scheme for 2 years, and then you're going to jump over to another scheme and tell them, listen, I've been on this scheme for 2 years, then they're going to take you without late joiner penalties. No, that late joiner penalties, the little tongue twister, is going to follow you the rest of your life. Because if you move to a new medical scheme, they're going to see on the previous medical scheme, because they want proof that you were on a medical scheme. You have to send them proof. And then they're going to see, there was late joiner penalties. And they're going to put it in as well. So let's look at when can a waiting period not be applied is to child dependents born during the member's period of memberships, to a member who changes from one benefit option to another within the same medical scheme, to a member who has to change medical schemes because of a change in employment. I work at this company. We belong to ABC medical scheme. I resign. I'm working now for that company, and they belong to XYZ medical scheme. So I'm just changing because of employment. In other words, involuntary transfer. I don't want to transfer, but I don't have a choice. I don't work here anymore. I work for another company, and I belong to another scheme. This applies to members of restricted membership schemes only, yes? Um, to a member where the member's employer decides to leave a medical scheme or to join a new scheme, provided that reasonable notice 90 days is given to the medical scheme to which the application is made for membership, and the transfer occurs at the beginning of the financial year 1 January. So, I'm working for a company. The company tells us you must belong to ABC medical scheme. So we all belong to them. Then the company has got the fight of a problem with ABC medical scheme, and they said, no, we are all going to move now to XYZ medical scheme. All right, that is what they mean there. Applying the waiting periods for examples. If a member applies to join a scheme within 90 days of being a member of another scheme because of a change in employment, regardless of whether or not the member has more or less than 24 months continuous membership of a scheme, there will be no waiting periods. Here's my pen. There it is. No waiting periods can be applied except if the balance of any unexpired waiting period is already in force. So, because he was a member of a medical scheme, has more or less than 24 months continuous membership, and he wants to join them within 90 days, there's no waiting periods, except if there was waiting periods on the scheme. Remember what I said. If there was waiting periods, then that will transfer over to this one. Unexpired waiting periods already in force. Number two, if a person applies to join a scheme within 90 days of being a beneficiary of another scheme because they no longer qualify as a dependent, for example, their parent scheme, and has continuously been a beneficiary for more than 24 months on one or more schemes, the new scheme may impose only the 3 months general waiting period, and this will not apply in respect of PMBs. So those students that studied and they were on their parents' medical scheme, now they finished university, they got their degrees, they go now into the big man's world, and they must look for a job and they find a job, and now they go on their own. Because they were on a medical scheme for more or less than 24 months and they want to join a new scheme within 90 days, they won't be late joiner penalties, only the 3 months general waiting period. However, most schemes are also unlikely to impose any waiting periods for this. Some might, some won't. 3. If a person applies within 90 days to join a new scheme because they no longer qualified as a dependent on that scheme and has less than 24 months. If they have got less than 24 months continuous cover for one or more schemes, the scheme may impose a 12-month condition-specific period, but it will not apply to the PMBs. So again, most schemes are unlikely to impose any period on this as well. 4. If a person marries and then applies within 90 days to join the spouse's medical scheme and has less than 24 months continuous cover on one or more schemes, then the spouse's scheme could impose a 12-month condition-specific waiting period. This will not affect the PMBs. The rules of some schemes provide that no waiting period will be applied if registration as a dependent spouse is made within a certain period from the date of marriage. So note, in terms of section 29A subsection 7 of a medical scheme, a medical scheme can specify that an applicant must submit a medical report so that the scheme knows what conditions to apply waiting periods to. But in terms of Regulation 12, the scheme must pay the cost of any medical tests or examination required. So if the medical scheme sends you for medical reports, they have to pay for it. Late journal penalties are only applicable to risk benefits. And that's the end of part 1 of Unit 4. If you've got any questions, you know what to do.